Okay, well, we'll continue now. So, as we create the requisition and then we post it, and then a candidate applies to that job, and then we go through the different steps, like we saw yesterday with the interview step and the offer letter. And once they accept the offer letter, and then the recruiter or the hiring manager makes the decision to hire that person, the candidate gets moved into the hire step. Now, hire step is part of the HCM, and basically hiring means now that position that was open, we're going to take that candidate against that position, and we're going to hire him or her. And what that will mean is when you hire someone in the system, you have to enter this employee is going to be reporting to this cost center. So there's a screen where you enter the cost center, you enter the region or the company. There's also a compensation page where you enter the comp. The compensation will actually default in from what you entered in the offer stage, but you do have the ability to change it. Now, once you hire someone and say they're going to start next week, there's another step which is called onboarding. And onboarding means now that you hired this person, but they haven't started yet, there are certain things that you want that new hire to do within the Workday system before they actually start. So Workday has a onboarding business process. This is separate than a hire process, and you could launch the onboarding process to a pre-hire, and once they are hired in the system and they get to the onboarding step, they could do and enter these information such as elect their benefits, they could enter their personal and contact information change, and they could fill out the form I-9, their tax withholdings if that is set up. That is usually tax and withholdings would be a decision that the company makes, like if they do want the new hire to do the W-4 paperwork or the federal tax form within Workday, or they want it to be done within their ADP payroll system. So if the company is using Workday payroll, then it makes sense to use this. Otherwise, you're just collecting this information, and then you have to somehow get this information to your payroll folks. So even at my client, we had the tax form within Workday, but then they decided that it was just a hassle. Like, why put it in Workday when the data actually needs to go into ADP? So this step was removed from the onboarding business process. So there's the complete form I-9, there's manage I-9 assignment. That means you could make any, like, your legal name changes to it. And if you're gonna allow any payment elections, if you're using payroll, then that step would be there. Otherwise, if you're not using Workday payroll, then you will not have manage payment elections. And then there's some documents that onboarding allows you to have. So for example, when you hire, when you first start at a company, they give you a employee handbook, and you have to read that handbook, and you have to say, I have read it, or you acknowledge that you have received and read it. So there is this a business process, a sub process called review documents, and this one you could create a document and you could add it to your onboarding step, so that when the person goes through onboarding, they will see those documents and they could acknowledge or read them. So very easy business process. These are the things that you could do with it. And all of this is configured under the business process called onboarding setup. And then within that, you would add any of these sub processes. step, there's also a when the pre-hire first comes into Workday, there's also a dashboard called onboarding, which you could manage through maintain dashboards, which has the number of tasks that have been assigned to them and how many tasks are still open. So when they come to that dashboard, they know like any open items that they have to do. So with that, let me give you guys a tour of the business process. So here is onboarding for sample networks. You know, you navigate to it from BP onboarding, and you might be using the default business process, or you may have configured it for your own organization. So BP onboarding. Yeah, so I was showing that in this sample business process, there are 15 tasks, and the task that is listed first, and so on. Because the items show up in the candidate's inbox, so this item will go to the inbox first, and then on top of that, the next item will go on in the inbox. And then this item will go above this item. So the order of the items in the inbox actually ends up being opposite of the order that you see here. So here, there's the review document, and then change emergency contacts, change benefit elections, and so on. So you think that when these items are sent to the inbox, even though this item is sent first, and then this comes after, so by default, Workday inbox has the most recent items at the top. So right. What happens in real life is the review step will be the last step in the inbox, and the step that's here. So if whatever task that you want the candidate to do first, you want to put that as the last task, and that's something that you want at the end, you want to put that at the top of in this business process. So when I give a demo, you'll see how the review documents is at the end. I mean, not at the end, but as notice right off the bat, the first step, I have marked it as complete right after the initiation, because there's certain things that don't happen unless the business process is complete. So when this goes to the candidate, I mean, they may take 3 days to fill this out, or they may not even complete this even after they're starting, and they may not have finished some task. So if you don't have this marked as complete, then any of the following tasks, they will get stuck until either the candidate completes these tasks or you complete these tasks on behalf of the candidate. So just as a precaution, it makes sense to make this one complete. If you don't want to make the very first step complete, then at least do the maybe emergency contacts, but you don't want to wait till the whole every single step is complete before you mark it as complete, because then some candidates just won't complete this step before they start, and then it will hold up some other sub process. So where you mark it as a complete is going to depend on what kind of problems you're having with onboarding. If your population is completing everything and they're very mobile and they're very technologically savvy, then you don't need to have this marked as complete. But if they're kind of lazy, then yeah, we cannot wait on them to complete it. Okay, so all of these are individual steps, and they've been configured to go to, if it was a continuum worker as self, employee as self, or pre-contingent worker. So that means the pre-hire, they will still get this item in their inbox because we have pre-employee as self. They won't go to them. But then say assume that they don't take action on it, then we need to make sure that on day one, when they're part of the employee as self, they're no longer part of the pre-employee, but they have pre-employee as self. We want to make sure that employee also has access to take this action. Okay, so these are very commonly tasks that are part of the onboarding. So you want to make sure that you have the emergency contact step in there. If you're using Workday benefits, then you need to have the benefit step in there for the employee, and then for the benefit partner to review it, and then the complete I-9 step, and a to-do. Notice this is a to-do, and these are actions. So that means for these items, the employee actually completes this information on that screen. Whereas if it's a to-do, it shows up in their inbox, but they have to click on something else and go to another page and then enter this information, and then come back to that to-do and mark it complete. Otherwise, even though they have entered it, that to-do will still show up as an open task. And I'll show you that in the demo, what that means. Okay, so this is where they enter their social security number, their personal information like gender, date of birth, address, and then if they have a different legal name, and then you might have some message to them. And you could also put a step in here that's under the step delay. So this step, it says initiation date 90 days. So this step will be sent to their inbox 90 days after they start. And then 2 weeks after their start date, they will get this welcome to the team. So there's obviously, as in any business process, you could put in a delay. And then we have, if you have the education information, you're collecting that. And then you have the upload photo if you're collecting that. So this, every company is going to have different tasks in here. I have actually seen another example of a task is, how some companies ask what kind of computer you want. So they have actually made that into a to-do step so that they could collect that information from onboarding. So you could put those kind of questions here as well, or if they need any kind of special accommodations. So this is very configurable to whatever the company needs. And no two companies will have the same onboarding process, right? There will be some differences. Like you may have here, everything's only for the employee or the benefits partner. But I could also create a task here for facilities. So that facilities get a to-do that says, hey, set up their office space. So there could be a task for non-HR group as well, or there could be a task for the help desk team to, set up some software. So you could definitely, as long as you have created that group and you have assigned members to that group, you could assign a action or a to-do step for non-HR members as well. Okay, so that's the process, the business process. And let me do a demo now. Let me get a candidate. Okay, so here, Wendy wrote this sample employee. She's not starting until this Friday. So, but she already got her notification, which was sent to her personal email, because during the recruiting process or during the hire process, her personal email was collected and entered into Workday. So now the Workday notification was sent to her, and then we're pretending by proxying in as that she's going to log into the system, and this is what she's going to see. Okay, so she goes to the inbox and see how these are the items that are in the inbox. Only the items that are before the hire date, because there was signing up for benefits, which does not come into play until you actually start. So that's why here's only 8 items, not the 15 that we saw earlier. And so getting started, that was the at the bottom of the business process. So right now that's at the top. And the onboarding message is the first one. And then, we saw I-9 was the third step from the top in the business process. So now is the third step from the bottom. Okay, so as the candidate, they see this message and it's just getting started. So they could go ahead and hit submit and then go to the next one. So the next task, update their legal name, preferred name, etc. So they could click there and update the info. And then so on. They have a chance to update their contact info. So updating the contact info is a to-do. So you don't do that on this screen. You actually have to click on change my contact info, and then this will take you to the Workday page that has that. And then you come back to this and then you click submit. And then you have your personal info where we got the instructions, and then they could enter that, and that's a task. Same thing with social security number, and that gets be submitted. And then here's the I-9 form. So this is not a to-do step. This is actually, you do it in line. And there was somebody who wanted to see this. Let me see if they're online. Sandra, so this is the page that you wanted to see for the I-9 step. Let me make that full screen. So as long as you have the complete form I-9 in the business process, then you will see this form. And every company will have the same form, because this is delivered by Workday and we cannot modify this. So this is a particular form, and they have a new version of this, but this is an old tenant. That was actually 2 quarters ago, that the information now gets pre-populated. So whatever you had before, now it gets pre-populated. Whatever you have in the system, and then you just select your proper type of immigration status, put in birth date. By the government. So it's probably for the E-Verify part of this, because you could do this without the E-Verify, or you could have this part of E-Verify. Yeah. So usually the integration folks, they will set up the E-Verify. And even though I have set up many onboarding processes, E-Verify is something that's actually just done by the integration guru. So I've actually not seen that, but I'm sure there's some Just like I posted the documentation for DocuSign, I'm sure there's some documentation for E-Verify. I'll try to look that up, and if I find it, I'll post it. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and submit this. Okay, so now it's the emergency contact step. And if you open it up, then you have to populate the info. I could have skipped it if I did not open it, but now that I open the page, I have to populate it. And at least one piece of contact information is required, whether it's going to be home, whether it's going to be a phone number or an email address. But for emergency contacts, it makes sense to have a mobile number. Okay. And then this is the review document step, where you could create documents and have the employee or the pre-hire acknowledge them. So, like for example, you may have the expense guide, and you may have like harassment policy and handbook, etc. So I would have to go through all of these, otherwise it's going to give me an error message. Yeah. So I'm going to just cancel out of that. Okay. So that was the last step in that. So let me stop proxy and show you that business process. So within here, obviously, we could edit this business process. It's so hard to see the whole thing on the screen. There's this filter that allows you to remove columns that you don't need to see. So for example, I'm going to uncheck notes. We don't need to see that. So that column will disappear. So it makes it a little bit easier to fit everything on the screen. Okay, so it took out the columns that I do not want, but it still doesn't help much. Okay, so it's just this, when you add complete form I-9, it will automatically add this condition to it. This condition basically says that this will only route to I-9 if the position is within US and it's not a rehire. And then that form will show up. And then like I could remove this, or if the row was not there, I could add this row in there. And then I wanted to show you how to set up the documents. So when we have the review document step in there, then you get the configure document task, if that has been set up as the review documents business process. So I'm going to click on that, and this is where all the documents are maintained. And you could actually create a new document. So let me actually create a new document first, and then we'll add it to the list of documents that the candidate has to review. So let me add that. to create the document. That's just, I could just cancel this and then pretend like this was not in edit mode. So what we're going to do is create document, and then you give it a name. So for example, it might be onboarding and you give it a category. It could be under code of conduct, and then it could be a link, an attachment, or a template. So I'm going to say usually it's an attachment, like you want to have like a PDF document that you want them to review and acknowledge. So this, you do the create step, then you click OK. And then in this is where you could attach a document. So I attached it, then click OK. So this RM onboarding document step document has been created. So I'm going to go back to the business process. Okay. So go to the configure document step and give it an effective date. So here's where the documents are listed. So I'm going to scroll down to the bottom. I'm going to add that document. Okay. So you just click add, and you look up the document that you created. So RM, I think 1.0, I think. Yeah. You could also make it conditional. So you only want the people in the US to see it, or if you want, like, you could put any kind of condition on it, like a condition based on job level or location or any other type. So like if you want only people in France to see this, I'm sure there's some, no, I guess there's no condition called France. How about something for states? Okay, so we have a condition called, like, country is Japan. So only those candidates that meet this condition will see this document. And you can put some instruction saying, please review and acknowledge. And then if you just need an acknowledgement or an e-signature, if you don't select any, then it's not an open item. But if you select one of these, then it's going to be an open item until the candidate actually clicks on the acknowledgement checkbox. So this page right now it doesn't have anything to do with I-9. This is the list of documents that you could set up for the pre-hire to read and acknowledge. So this would be like company policies, like handbook or code of conduct, or there's a lot of, and if you needed to add another one, you click on add. And if you wanted to remove this one, you just click on remove. And then every year, because this is information that gets pushed to the new hires, you have an updated benefit policy every year. So the benefit guide or the employee handbook you have to delete the old one from here and upload the new one. And depending on how you have it, you might have to remove it or you could edit it. But this is an annual update where any bonus plan or benefit plan, if you have any kind of document related to that, that's for that particular year. Then in the next year, you have to change it. So you always have to edit this part. And not only this is good for pre-hires, but in a similar manner, you could create documents during the year for your existing employees, and you could roll out a document type announcement to everybody or to a particular set of employees. Like if you, during the, there's something called change of control document. So that may occur at any time, right? So if you want your executives to review that document and sign it, and you need to track that, well, Workday is a great way to create that document and then send it only to the executives and then have them acknowledge it within Workday. And then you have tracking that, yes, they did see it and they did acknowledge it, and it will become part of their Workday profile. So creating this document and distributing the document is like a really handy way to communicate with the employee populations. Okay, so now this is just a review of all the different documents that were there. So, like here's like the 2019 US handbook, right? So you need to change that and make it and update it with the 2020. Okay, so here's the one that I just added. And the way I got to that was from this checkbox. And so that pretty much concludes our onboarding business process and the demo portion. So the next session, we'll talk about any other topic that you wanted to know about. So you could either tell me now or you could post it. And then otherwise, we'll just go through. The next session will be dedicated for like a resume review or like resume questions you may have. But by the way, like I said, tomorrow, which we're not going to have the session. So the candidate not able to see the offer, they may not be able to see it, or more likely the interview team is not there, or they're not like properly set up. So they're usually around security. Like someone is not able to see what they should be able to see. Because everything else is very well tested by Workday, and you're just using the Workday product. But what gets us in trouble is the security, because we are responsible for setting up our own security and having the right people and assigning them to the right domain and having the right domain set up for the functionality, because someone may expect a certain functionality, but they don't have access to that functionality because they're not part of that domain. So if you look on community, like majority of the issues are either functionality that does not exist, or functionality does exist, but someone does not have access to it. So those are the things that really gets us like problems. But within the Workday application itself, right, is used by like thousands of customers and is very well tested. So you usually do not have defects. So in that, they might ask you to create a new offer template, right? Like now they're expanding to another country, or you're going to expand to Brazil. So now you need offer template that's specific for Brazil, right? So we showed how to create the offer template, and you have to put a condition rule on it so that it only triggers for requisitions that are, for that. And you may also have to create a requisition template, because even though this is recruitment is meant for recruiters, but recruiters are not going to be able to do the setup tables, right? Like if the company decides that they want to change the reasons, right? Like background check reasons, or they want to add another interview type, or a disposition reason. That's a common task. In every step, when you disposition a candidate, right, you're either going to make a decision to go forward, or you're going to decline them. And when you decline someone, like we saw that was part of when we looked at the business process, at the bottom of each stage, there were disposition reasons. And I showed you guys the table where you go to maintain those reasons. So those reasons get updated all the time, right? So recruiters are not going to do that. I mean, they may know how to do it, but it's not going to be their core job. So updating the reasons is going to be a common task. Creating reports, like time to fill a report. That's a very common ask. Like, how long is it taking them to fill a requisition? So there might be some delivered reports that you'll have to modify and create it as a custom report, because they're going to want, in recruiting, there's a lot of data that you need to provide. Everything from list of open requisitions to how long it took to fill, what is the source of the candidate. So all of this data is actually part of the Workday delivered reports, but there will be additional information that they want, so you'll have to customize it.